Can you talk about how to distinguish between what readings are canonical and non-canonical?
Yes.
And what criteria that scholars use to distinguish between the two?
Sure. So let's say up to the 900s, okay, so mid-10th century, there was no standard system, or there was, there was no collection or even a statement by religious scholars or political authority to say, well, the only valid readings of the Quran are those or this. There were many readings circulating within Muslims. Not only 7, there were, according to sources, there were, 15, 24, even, a later scholar, his name is Al-Hudhali, he collected a book and called it the 50 variant readings of the Quran. Okay, so this multiplicity caused a problem. You don't want the Quran to be read in 50 different ways. And then, this man, Ibn Mujahid, came. He died in 324, 936 AD. And then he selected what we now call the 7 system or canonical readings of the Quran.
But Ibn Mujahid is not the first to collect variant reading, isn't it?
He's not the first one. There were attempts before him. There was Tabari, the great exegete and commentator. He had a book on variant readings. Abu Ubaid, another scholar, he had a book on 25 variant readings. There were other collections. He was not the first one to do that. But what seemed to happen with Ibn Mujahid, that he was closely connected to the court. He was aided by the vizier at that time. People who opposed him, there were many scholars who opposed Ibn Mujahid's idea to only limit the variant readings to 7. So 2 of his rivals, or 2 of the people who opposed him, they were tried in the court. They were flogged, put in prison. And there was, I don't want to say an enforced decree to only use those 7 readings, but it became, since that period, the system of Ibn Mujahid dominated other systems. That being said, many other scholars after Ibn Mujahid, they still wrote manuals on Qira'at, on variant readings, 7, 8 readings, 9 readings, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it took time for Ibn Mujahid's system to really settle down and for Muslims to adopt it. So back to the question, what is canonical and what is not, again, back to the time period. Before Ibn Mujahid, there was no such thing as canonical and non-canonical. All variant readings were there. There was a vague consensus among scholars what to read and what not to read. But post that period, the consensus of the Muslim community agreed that those 7, we would consider them canonical, transmitted to us via tawatur, which means sound transmission that cannot be proven to be wrong. All other readings outside this system of the 7 started to be deemed as irregular, anomalous, i.e.
in this is a term that appears, the shawad, that appears in the title of your book.
Correct. So the idea of shawad, something that I argued for, is that it is also a I don't want to say flexible, but it changes. The what is considered shawad now, irregular or anomalous, it was not anomalous 200 or 300 years ago. Mm-hmm. So by the same token, before Ibn Mujahid, what was considered to be anomalous, it became anomalous after Ibn Mujahid. People were reciting the anomalous readings before Ibn Mujahid in the mosque, liturgically. And because there was no official decree or there was no official consensus by legal scholars to say, well, you only have to stick to the 7 readings.
So this is where you get to the curious situation where someone like Tabari, who we mentioned is, the great historian and exegete, is looked on by some later Muslim scholars as problematic for the way he negotiated the question of the readings.
Sure, because Tabari and many other early scholars, they don't fall within this fixed paradigm or this fixed, what became later on the consensus. He falls outside the consensus. And remember, consensus is always a retroactive thing. There was no such thing as, now in the year 320 or 936, all Muslim scholars agreed on something. It doesn't happen this way.